Hello and welcome to Your Choice 2024 primary election coverage on HOMTV. I'm your host, Samantha Deal. Joining me for this candidate interview is Mike McCurdy, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Clerk. Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Samantha.
Of course. Before we get started, please take this time to introduce yourself to the viewing audience.
Well, hello Meridian Township. My name is Mike McCurdy. I'm a candidate for Meridian Township Clerk. I'm from this community. I grew up here going to East Lansing schools, but with a Meridian Township address. My kids live here, my grandkids live here, as do my parents. So my family's deeply invested in our community. I care about our community a lot. It has given much to my family, and I want to give back to it, and that's why I'm running for clerk's office.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Each Meridian Township Clerk candidate will be asked a standard list of 10 questions, and we'll get started with question number 1. Please explain how your education and professional background make you an ideal candidate for Meridian Township Clerk.
Oh, well, thank you. So many years ago when I was in school, I was studying languages. So I studied Spanish, I studied sign language, as well as Arabic. And I moved on from studying languages to doing peace and justice work in the Middle East. I went there to train human rights observers and to be a human rights observer myself. So I have a lot of experience in the world dealing with people from different cultures, dealing with people from different backgrounds, doing conflict resolution. Also professionally, after doing that work, I began a career in construction. I had my own company for a while, as well as working for the MSU student housing cooperatives, where I was in charge of their facilities for 18 years. So I know how to manage people. I've managed large projects, oftentimes working with 30, 40 people working under me at a time. So I know how to treat workers right. I know how to get the best out of people and treat them with respect. And I think that's going to be very important in managing the clerk's office. I know how to manage budgets. I know how to manage complex logistics. And I know how to get big jobs done. And our elections here in Michigan are some of the most complex in the country. It's been reported recently in Politico that because of Proposition 2 that we passed back in 2022, a great initiative, that was a citizen-led initiative that gave us a host of new voting rights. That also made the clerk's jobs more complicated, though, because we have to make sure people have access to their guaranteed access to absentee voting. They have to get their absentee voting applications. We have to have 9 days of early voting. So the clerk's job has gotten much more complicated here in Michigan, but it's very important. And I believe that my background in managing people, managing complex tasks, will help guarantee our voting rights are preserved.
Thank you. What are the essential functions of the clerk's office, and specifically the responsibilities of the township clerk? Please address any improvements you would like to make.
So, this is a question I get asked a lot when I'm knocking doors. I've been knocking thousands of doors all over the township, and people always want to know what I'm going to change in the clerk's office. Well, the truth is I think Clerk Guthrie was doing a pretty good job running our elections, and it's a challenging job. And so my number one priority coming in as being clerk is to maintain the stability in making sure our elections run smoothly, that there are no hiccups, that there are no problems with transition, that because our elections are so important. We need to make sure every vote is counted. We need to make sure that we are running transparent elections, that we're adhering to election law. So those are my number one priorities. If we're looking for things that I would do differently, things that I would change in the township, I would look more towards the role of the clerk in being one of the votes on the board. We have had a huge problem, as people who are paying attention to Meridian Township politics know, with worker mistreatment. We've had our township manager just had to step down because of over a decade of basically a hostile work environment here in the township. In my background managing people, I've never stood for disrespect of my workforce. I believe that every worker deserves a safe place to work. They deserve to be able to speak up without retribution. So my number one priority for change coming in would be to try to change the workplace culture. Be a part of the change. I know I can't do it by myself, but as we get a new township manager, we've just gotten a new supervisor. I think it's a time when we can begin to change the culture and make it a more positive place to work for all of our employees here in the township.
In 2022, Proposal 2 was passed by Michigan voters. This proposal brought numerous changes to elections in Michigan and the ways people can vote. How familiar are you with the changes in election law, and how do you plan to ensure Meridian Township is in compliance with these new laws?
I'm very familiar. Thanks for asking. I was actually, I was part of I'm the local representative of the Progressive Caucus of the Michigan Democratic Party here in Meridian Township. I represent the 7th Congressional District, and as a board, we helped push and promote that initiative, the proposal to initiative, which, I mean, over 300,000 signatures had to get collected all over the state. So it was a huge initiative to get that proposal on the ballot, get it passed. It guarantees us the right to no reason absentee voting, which is just huge. It guarantees us 9 days of early voting. But maybe most importantly, and something that doesn't get talked about, is it guarantees us access to voting without free of intimidation and harassment, which has become a problem around the country. And I have the utmost commitment. If I'm going to be the next clerk, I'm going to make sure that our polling places are safe, that there is not voter intimidation happening, that our poll workers are safe. I'll be working, with Secretary of State Benson, Attorney General Dana Nessel, our local police chief, everybody I can to make sure that we maintain a safe voting environment. As well as logistically, if we go back to the other, rights that we gained in Proposal 2, just logistically making sure that our staff people are up to par on what deadlines need to be met. Because basically our elections have become more complex logistically, which means we need to be making sure we hit every single deadline that is spelled out by the law, that we get our absentee ballot applications out on time, that we get them processed on time, that if there's mistakes on them, that voters are contacted and that the mistakes are corrected. So there's a lot of logistics involved, and I'll make sure that we meet our deadlines.
Can you share a personal story or experience that highlights your commitment to public service?
Sure. That's a hard question because I've lived a life committed to public service, and there's so many different levels, from serving on different boards that I serve on to the personal. And I think I'm going to go with more of a personal kind of answer. Because I think public service starts, with the interactions with people in our community. And I had a few years back, I had an old friend call me, and it's a friend who struggles with substance abuse sometimes and homelessness. And I know when the phone rings, it's always going to be, there's always going to be a problem. And so I was busy. I was doing a home renovation project. I had my hammer out, and my phone rings, and I looked at it, and I almost didn't answer. But I knew, okay, I'm going to answer. I'm going to see what he needs. So I answered, and he said, "Hey, Mike, the mother of my kids just got taken into custody, having a mental health breakdown, and my kids are all at the police station. Can you give me a ride to go get them?" So I'm like, okay. So, took off my tools, picked him up, took him to the police station, and a couple hours later, I have him and his kids, a couple of CPS workers touring my house, and they're all moving in because that's the only way we were going to get those kids out of police custody because my friend had no place to live. So, they then lived with me until we were able to find a stable housing situation for them. And to me, that's kind of at the core of what it means to serve your community. Is we have to be, when we get called, when the world calls us to action, we have to be willing to step up and meet the needs of our community, whatever those needs are.
How would you prioritize the use of the Township General Fund? When thinking about adopting future budgets, what do you hope to see incorporated?
So I think largely our priorities are correct in our general fund, from funding, police and fire, to roads, parks. I love the fact that we acquire green space, So I think largely our funds are prioritized well. When I look at our sort of our revenue and our general fund, I think it's around the edges, around the margins. We really have to find ways to get as much as we can out of our tax dollars, because knocking doors around the township, the number one issue that voters have is property taxes. Everybody loves the services we get here in the township. People love living here. They live here for a reason, and the services we get are part of that reason. But people are feeling the squeeze. Prices are going up. Inflation is hurting people, and people are feeling the pinch. And people are telling me that they're feeling that they could get taxed out of Meridian Township. So I'll be always looking at that fund, seeing where can we be more careful with our tax dollars, where can we save, and how can we find ways to make sure that we're not going to have to go back to the voters to.
What steps do you think the township should take to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion within the workforce to effectively represent the diverse makeup of the community?
So that's an interesting question. Right now, on a national level, and I'm sure on a local level to some degree as well, there's a lot of pushback against DEI, and it's unfair. It's the pushback is that underqualified people are supposedly getting hired to do jobs, and I think that's just fundamentally the wrong way to look at it. I think that historically, there's been we live in a nation that was founded and by white people of means, and so hence power has passed on, and we see the results of that today. And what needs to happen is as we hire people, we have to look at who are the most qualified people, and oftentimes we're not looking broadly enough. We're not looking broadly enough in our community. People are hiring friends and family, and we still live in a fairly segregated society. So if we still have broadly non-diverse people in power, those people are gonna also their not necessarily prejudices, but the people they know are more likely to be that people who look like them and are like them. And so it's looking outside of our circles of friends and immediate family and having a broader search for people when we need to hire. And I really think it starts at the top. And if we look at what's, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but if we look at just the slate that's currently running, as a slate of our current board of trustees is all white, right? So when we look at why are they choosing to run as an all-white slate when we have a very qualified, person of color running who has experience? So we have to ask ourselves questions. Who are the most qualified people in the community to serve? And if we're not choosing those people, we have to ask why not. So that's what I say. It starts at the top. We have to make good decisions about who we hire, and we have to hire the most qualified people, and we can't always assume that those people, look like us.
How do you plan to foster positive employee relations? Can you please provide a specific example?
Sure. Positive employee relations, that's of utmost importance. And I think, for me, as somebody who, does have a history of managing, large groups of people, oftentimes in a pretty rough and tumble environment. Construction sites, large projects are oftentimes, not the place where people are always on their best behavior. And it's just about being on the lookout. Being on the lookout for inappropriate joking. People, workers who maybe seem like, they're getting. Not getting along with the group, and just looking out for the morale of your staff and the people working under you, and fostering an environment where people are treated right. And I guess an example, from my past would be, I'm walking by some workers and some inappropriate sexual joking was happening, and just saying, hey you guys, we can't, that can't happen in my workplace, that's not okay in this day and age. And they say, oh no, she doesn't mind. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's not about whether she minds or not. It's just about we have to have a professional workplace, and that's not how we can function now. And it's just not walking by and choosing not to say something. You always have to choose to say something, choose to confront bad behavior when you see it, and that helps foster an environment where people are treated fairly.
How will you utilize transparency to create an effective and trusting community for Meridian Township employees and the residents of the township?
So, honestly, transparency is one of the reasons I chose to run. I think sometimes the township, it can be very hard to know what's going on, And I think we need to be more transparent. And I think one of the fundamental changes that needs to happen in the township towards transparency is having a communication director. We've actually talked about this before. The last township manager, Frank Walsh, eliminated the position and took those responsibilities under his own wing. And I think it's important that we have a communication director that is separate from the township manager and that has some autonomy, and whose job it is really to be transparent, who has that as part of basically the mission of their job is to let people know in the township what our township's up to. So a communication director, bringing that position back, I think could be really important towards transparency, but also open, honest communication. Sometimes I feel like we, or perhaps the township, or people representing the township, have great ideas of things they want to do, and they don't want to talk about how we're going to pay for it. And I think that it's very important that we're open and upfront. And the community center that's being planned right now is a really great example. We know that if we're going to develop a 40,000 square foot community center, there's going to be a substantial cost. And it shouldn't be, at this stage, in my opinion, with my background in development and construction, I think we should have an estimated cost, even if it's 30-40% off. We should have some idea to be able to tell the community it's going to cost between $20 and $30 million, for example, to buy and redevelop this property. Right now, we're being told there's no cost, or we don't know what the cost is. We have no idea. And to me, that's not being transparent. You can't just have a project and say like, hey, we're going to have new pickleball courts, we're going to have new office spaces, we're going to have new workout center, we're going to have a new senior center, and but we have no idea what it's going to cost. That to me, transparency is saying, hey, we're going to have these costs. It is going to require a millage. This is how we're going to have to pay for it. We can't say, hey, we think we're going to get some grants. We think we're going to get a bunch of donations. Maybe we won't have to pay for it at all. Because to me, that's not being transparent. It's not being forthright. And so transparency means open communication, being forthright with the residents about what we're doing, not only when it's positive, but also when it's things that aren't popular, like potential tax increases. We have to just be honest, and I pledge, to be as transparent as I am able. Also, the clerk, very importantly, is in charge of fulfilling FOIA requests. So, as a community, someone involved in my community, I've filed many FOIA requests with different government agencies around the state, and oftentimes you run into hurdles with administrations, the bureaucracy not wanting really to answer your FOIA requests and making it difficult. And I pledge to really try to help citizens. Anyone who wants to know what's going on in their government and files a FOIA request, I'm going to do my utmost to help you have a successful FOIA request, to get you the information you need about your community, because that goes back to transparency. I'm a believer that everybody deserves to know what their government is doing, because ultimately we serve the people. And I think that too often people, once elected, forget that they're servants of the people.
What do you consider to be the top 2 challenges facing Meridian Township?
Top 2 challenges. So first thing that comes to mind is downtown Okemos, the Four Corners. Looks like a parking lot. And we need, as far as I understand, we're really back to square one, or perhaps even worse than square one, because we have developers who own the property who have no plan at all of what they're going to do with it, at least as far as what's been presented to the township. And having no plan when we are this many years of having all of our downtown demolished is really problematic to me, and I think it's problematic to a lot of people in the township. It's bad for our community morale, it's bad for our businesses, and it just doesn't look good for our community. So I would really have it wouldn't be up to me. I can't say it's in my power, so I can't promise, but I would really like to see ground broken. And if I'm elected clerk in the first 4 years, that would be something going in, something the community's happy about, something we can all be proud of getting built there would be tremendous. Beyond that, I'm going to go for my other priority. I'm going to go back to workplace culture here in the township. Very, very important to me that we begin instituting policies and practices that ensure that our workers are able to speak up about problems they're having without fear of retaliation. I want to ensure that there's less reasons for people to need to speak out, less reasons for people to feel like they're being bullied or abused in their workplace. But fundamental to that is people need to know that if they speak out, they will be listened to and there will not be retaliation. That is, the fact that has been going on in the township really turns my stomach, and I will have it as a fundamental goal to help shift that culture.
What goals would you like to see the township accomplish in the next 5 years?
So over the next, again, I think we just touched on some of that, changing the workplace culture, getting downtown Okemos, moved along. But I think beyond that, really, we need more affordable housing. It is so hard for young families who would like to live in our township, who would like to have access to our amazing schools, to move in here and to get a foothold. It's children are our future, young people are our future, and we to make that possible, we really need more affordable housing. The cost of housing everywhere is going up, and here in the township, I think we really need to find ways to when we have new developments going in, to ensure there's an affordable housing component to it.
With a few minutes remaining, we'd like you to provide a closing statement for the viewing audience.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here, Samantha. And I just want to say that I'm a lifelong resident of Meridian Township, and this community has given so much to me, to my family, to my children, and now to my grandchildren. The libraries, the schools, the parks, the trails, they are all an integral part of mine and my family's life. And I want to give back to our community. I want to serve as clerk. I want to serve as clerk for as long as the township's willing to have me. I'm not going to be using this clerk seat as a stepping stone to another office. I'm looking to be the clerk, to serve the community, and for as long as the community wants me to be there. So I really hope you'll give me a chance to be Meridian Township's next clerk, and I hope you'll give me your vote in the August 6th primary. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching this candidate interview with Mike McCurdy, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Clerk. I'm Samantha Deal. Thanks for watching.